Listen, you weren't born just to pay bills, chase numbers, and die tired. You weren't put on this earth simply to become a servant of money. You were born to rise, to create, to experience life with a fire in your chest and purpose in your steps. But somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that money is the ultimate destination, and you believed it. You started running after money like it was oxygen. You sacrificed your peace, your time, your dreams. All for digits that disappear the moment you spend them. Let me tell you a truth today: money is not the goal. Freedom is, because what is money without time to enjoy it? What is wealth without the freedom to live life on your own terms? What is success if you wake up every day feeling trapped in a life you didn't choose? Freedom, that's the real treasure. Freedom to wake up when you want. Freedom to work where you want. Freedom to say yes to what matters and no to what drains your soul. Freedom to build something that outlives you. Money is just the tool. Freedom is the purpose behind it. But understand, this freedom is not free. It demands your discipline. It demands your courage. It demands your willingness to break the habits that kept you small. You don't get freedom by wishing. You get it by deciding. Deciding to stop wasting time. Deciding to stop living for approval. Deciding to invest in yourself like your life depends on it. Because it does. You want freedom, then become the person freedom belongs to. A person who controls their habits. A person who masters their mind. A person who builds, creates, and delivers value so deeply that money becomes a natural result, not a desperate chase. The world will tell you to pursue money, but the wise pursue growth, and money pursues them. So today, shift your aim. Don't just chase wealth, chase capacity. Chase impact. Chase the person you know you can become. Because when you become unstoppable, when you become disciplined, when you become someone who refuses to break, freedom isn't a dream. It becomes your lifestyle. Remember, money is not the goal, freedom is. So stop running after small numbers and start running after the version of you who was born to be limitless. Your freedom is waiting. Now go earn it, not with money, but with growth, courage, and purpose. Money is a tool, not a destination. Many people spend their entire lives chasing it as if it is the final trophy, the ultimate measure of success, the one thing that will finally make them feel whole. But the moment you treat money like a destination, you begin to misunderstand its true purpose. You start to believe that happiness is waiting for you at the end of a paycheck, or that peace will suddenly appear once your bank account hits a specific number. This belief quietly steals your joy, your presence, your creativity, and the deeper meaning behind why you work in the first place. Money was never meant to be the finish line. It was meant to be the vehicle that helps you reach a life filled with choices, options, and freedom. When you chase money blindly, you unknowingly step into a cycle that has no ending, because money has no limit. No matter how much you earn, there is always more you could earn. Someone somewhere will always have more than you. The moment you tie your self-worth to money, you enter an endless race where you are forever behind someone else. You begin comparing your earnings, your lifestyle, your possessions, your pace of progress with others, forgetting that your journey is uniquely yours. This comparison robs you of the joy of becoming. You don't see how far you've come because you're too busy staring at someone else's finish line. But when you see money as a tool, everything changes. A tool is something you use. It's something that works for you, not something you work for endlessly without purpose. Money becomes a servant, not a master. It becomes a resource you can direct toward building the life you want, one filled with peace, fulfillment, growth, and impact. Tools help you construct. Tools help you expand. Tools help you solve problems. Tools help you open doors that were once locked. When you view money this way, you stop trying to hoard it and start learning how to use it intelligently. Seeing money as a tool shifts your focus from accumulation to intention. Instead of asking, "How do I get more money?" you begin asking, "What do I want my life to look like, and how can money support that?" Suddenly your decisions become clearer. You don't buy things to impress people who don't care. You don't waste years staying in situations that drain you just because they pay well. You start aligning your actions with a bigger vision. You start valuing time more than things. You begin to recognize that the real wealth is having the freedom to choose how you spend your days. Money simply helps you make those choices with more comfort and security. When you treat money as a destination, you also fall into the trap of thinking that you must sacrifice everything else to get it: your health, your relationships, your passions, your joy. Many people grind themselves to exhaustion, believing that suffering is the price of success. They work long hours in jobs they hate, surrounded by people who drain their spirit, all because they believe one day it will be worth it. But that one day never comes if you don't learn how to live today. Money alone will not give you energy. Money alone will not give you peace. Money alone cannot restore the time you lost. The destination mindset tricks you into trading the very things that matter most for something that is only meant to support your life, not consume it. But the moment you see money as a tool, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop treating money like a god that controls your every choice. You start building a healthier relationship with it. You understand that tools require skill to use correctly, and that skill comes from discipline, awareness, and clarity. You learn how to budget with purpose, how to invest wisely, how to create multiple streams of income that support, not suffocate, your lifestyle. You become more strategic. You start thinking long-term instead of reacting emotionally. You become a better decision maker because you are no longer operating from desperation. When money is a tool, you also give yourself permission to think bigger. Tools expand possibilities. They help you build businesses, make investments, support your family, fund your dreams, and create a life aligned with your values. You stop thinking in terms of limitations and start thinking in terms of opportunity. You realize you don't need millions to live a meaningful life. You need clarity about what truly matters to you. For some, freedom might mean traveling the world. For others, it might mean working fewer hours, spending time with family, learning new skills, or pursuing a passion project. Money becomes the tool that helps you shape your vision into reality. When you understand the role of money, you also begin to detach your identity from it. You stop feeling inferior when you have less and stop feeling superior when you have more. You recognize that money amplifies who you already are. It doesn't define who you are. If you are generous, money helps you give more. If you are disciplined, money helps you grow more. If you are irresponsible, money reveals that too. Money does not change your character. It magnifies it. And knowing this pushes you to work on yourself, not just your income. Because if you grow internally, everything you touch externally grows too. Most importantly, understanding that money is a tool frees you from fear. You stop fearing failure because you know money can be earned again. You stop fearing judgment because you're no longer chasing approval. You stop fearing loss because your value isn't tied to your bank account. Your confidence comes from your skills, your mindset, your resilience, your discipline. Things no one can take away from you. This inner strength becomes your real wealth. Money is a tool. It can build your future, support your dreams, open opportunities, and give you freedom if you use it correctly. But if you make it the destination, you will forever be chasing something that was never meant to hold your happiness in the first place. The key is not to chase money blindly, but to build a life of purpose and let money become the tool that lifts you higher. Freedom is the true metric of success, yet most people live their entire lives without ever realizing it. From childhood, society teaches you that success is measured by visible symbols: cars, houses, high-paying jobs, expensive clothes, luxurious holidays, and an impressive lifestyle. But these are surface-level indicators, and they often hide deeper truths. Real success has nothing to do with how much you own. Real success is the ability to choose your life, not just endure it. Freedom is the quiet, powerful form of wealth that sits underneath everything else. It is the invisible currency that shapes the quality of your existence far more than money ever will. Freedom means waking up without dread. It means opening your eyes each morning and knowing that the day ahead belongs to you. Not your boss, not your obligations, not your circumstances, you. It means you are living a life that reflects your values, your dreams, your rhythm, not someone else's expectations. You're not running on a treadmill you didn't choose. You're walking a path you built, one decision at a time, and that is the kind of wealth no paycheck alone can give you. People confuse money with freedom because they've only seen freedom expressed through wealth. They look at rich individuals and think they must be free, but freedom doesn't come from the money itself. It comes from the options the money provides. Money is simply a ticket, a pass, an enabler. But the destination you're trying to reach is freedom, the ability to choose, the ability to walk away from toxic environments, the ability to say no when something doesn't serve you, the ability to spend time on what matters, the ability to design a life that aligns with your soul. That is the real goal behind every dream, every ambition, every desire for improvement. Freedom also means control over your time, the most precious asset you will ever own. Because no matter how wealthy you become, you cannot buy more time. You cannot rewind moments. You cannot duplicate years. If your life is packed with stress, pressure, and obligations that drain your joy, then even millions of dollars won't save you from feeling trapped. But a person with modest income who spends their time doing what fulfills them, surrounded by people they love, living a life aligned with their desires, is far richer than someone who has everything except peace. Freedom reveals the true value of time. It teaches you that every moment spent on something meaningless is a moment stolen from your life. Success is not measured by how hard you work, but by how intentionally you live. A person who earns less but has time for their passions, family, spiritual peace, and personal growth might be infinitely more successful than someone who earns more, but has sacrificed their health, relationships, and joy to get there. Money can enhance your life, but freedom defines it, and freedom requires understanding what truly matters to you, not what the world says should matter. Freedom is also deeply tied to authenticity. When you are truly free, you stop living for validation. You stop performing for others. You stop caring about opinions that don't move you forward. You stop bending your identity to fit into spaces that shrink you. You start aligning your actions with your truth. You start choosing relationships that nourish your spirit, not drain it. You pursue work that fulfills you, not work that slowly destroys you. You express yourself without fear because you're no longer imprisoned by the need to impress anyone. Authenticity becomes your shield, clarity becomes your compass, and peace becomes your reward. But here's the part people often forget. Freedom doesn't magically appear when you achieve a certain income level. Freedom must be created intentionally, strategically, daily. It requires emotional maturity, discipline, and willingness to walk away from things that do not align with who you want to become. Freedom demands sacrifices, But those sacrifices are different from the sacrifices you make for money alone. When you chase money, you sacrifice your life. When you chase freedom, you sacrifice the things that keep your life small. Fear, laziness, procrastination, excuses, toxic relationships, destructive habits. Freedom is earned through self-respect, discipline, and courage. True freedom is also internal. It begins in the mind. You can be financially wealthy and still mentally imprisoned, locked in fear, anxiety, insecurity, or dependency. And you can be financially average yet mentally limitless, filled with peace, clarity, resilience, and confidence. People misunderstand this because they assume money automatically brings emotional peace. But emotional peace is a skill. It is something you cultivate from within. Freedom of the mind is the highest form of wealth because it travels with you everywhere. It's not tied to circumstances, it's tied to your inner strength. Freedom also means you are no longer controlled by fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing, fear of starting over. When you're truly free, these fears no longer dictate the direction of your life. You take risks when they matter, you trust your instincts, you build with courage, you believe in yourself even when the world doubts you. You understand that freedom requires stepping into the unknown and trusting your ability to handle whatever happens. That trust is a form of wealth far greater than financial security. Freedom means designing your future instead of defaulting into it. It means having the power to shape your lifestyle, your work, your environment, and your relationships with intention. It means aligning your life with your purpose, not with pressure. It means you get to create meaning, not just survive obligations. And once you taste real freedom, money becomes secondary, not irrelevant, but secondary. Because you finally understand that the goal was never the number. The goal was the life you hoped that number would give you. Freedom is the true metric of success, because freedom is the ultimate expression of a life lived well. You can have all the achievements in the world, but if you don't have freedom, you have nothing that truly belongs to you. Freedom is the ability to choose your path, shape your time, honor your truth, and live with intention. Everything else is just noise. Obsession with money creates limitation, even though most people believe the opposite. They think that the harder they chase money, the more their life will open up. They assume that if they run fast enough, work long enough, and push hard enough, money will eventually reward them with freedom, happiness, identity, and respect. But obsession is a trap disguised as ambition. It looks like drive, it looks like hunger, it looks like hustle, but underneath it is fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing others, fear of living an average life. And when fear drives your pursuit of money, the chase becomes a cage that grows tighter with every step you take. The danger of being obsessed with money is that it narrows your vision. You stop seeing possibilities and only see paychecks. You stop noticing opportunities that don't immediately pay you. You stop taking risks that could grow you. You stop nurturing relationships that bring emotional stability. You stop investing in skills that take time to develop. You stop thinking creatively. You start making choices from a place of desperation rather than intelligence. Your mind becomes consumed with how do I get money fast, instead of how do I build value, purpose, and a life I'm proud of. When your mind shrinks like this, so does your future. Obsession with money also creates internal pressure that slowly destroys your peace. You feel guilty when you rest. You feel anxious when you're not working. You feel inadequate when your progress slows. You feel threatened when someone else moves ahead. Your mind never relaxes because you've tied your worth to your income. You've convinced yourself that every moment not spent chasing money is a moment wasted. This mentality crushes your mental well-being, drains your energy, and erodes your sense of self. You start living in survival mode even when you're not in crisis, and survival mode is not where creativity, clarity, or growth can thrive. The deeper issue with obsessing over money is that it places your power outside of you. When you believe money is the ultimate source of security, happiness, and identity, you give money authority over your emotions and decisions. You become dependent on something external to validate your internal world. If money flows, you feel confident. If money slows, you feel worthless. If money disappears, your entire sense of identity collapses. This is a fragile way to live. True power comes from developing the internal strength, skill, mindset, and character that allow you to handle both abundance and scarcity with stability. When you build your internal world, money becomes a tool. When you neglect your internal world, money becomes a master. Obsession with money leads you to prioritize short-term gains over long-term growth. You start chasing quick wins instead of meaningful progress. You get stuck in cycles of jobs you hate, hustles that exhaust you, or businesses that drain your joy because you're only looking at the immediate financial reward. But long-term success requires patience, skill, building, and strategic thinking. These things often don't pay immediately, which means an obsession with money can make you abandon paths that could have given you true success, freedom, and impact. Another limitation of money obsession is that it narrows your identity. You become the person who wants money instead of the person who builds value. You stop seeing who you are becoming and only focus on what you are earning. But becoming is more important than earning. When you become a person of skill, discipline, creativity, resilience, and emotional intelligence, money naturally follows. But when you chase money without becoming someone capable of managing it, you lose it as quickly as you gain it. That's why so many people who suddenly acquire money through luck, inheritance, or temporary success end up right back where they started. They had money, but they didn't have capacity. Obsession with money also limits your relationships. It makes you see people through the lens of profit. Suddenly, friendships, connections, and interactions become transactional. You connect only when you need something. You withdraw when you don't. You lose the ability to build genuine relationships based on trust, support, and shared growth. But the truth is, meaningful relationships are one of the greatest forms of wealth. The right people introduce you to opportunities, ideas, skills, and environments that money alone can't access. When you see everyone as a means to an end, you lose the human connections that could have elevated your entire life. When you obsess over money, your creativity suffers. Creativity requires space, curiosity, and exploration, none of which exist when your mind is locked in financial anxiety. You can't innovate when you're desperate. You can't think long-term when you're panicking. You can't tap into your potential when you're mentally suffocating. Many people never discover their genius because they're too busy chasing money to explore the talents that could have made them abundant. The biggest limitation that comes from obsessing over money is that you forget why you started in the first place. Nobody wants money for the sake of money. Money is always tied to something deeper: safety, comfort, freedom, respect, choice, peace, opportunity, or happiness. But when obsession takes over, you lose sight of these deeper truths. You chase the symbol, not the substance. You lose your purpose, and without purpose, success becomes empty. Even if money comes, you feel nothing. It doesn't satisfy you because you sacrificed the very things money was supposed to enhance: your joy, your peace, your passion, your relationships, your sense of meaning. Obsession with money creates limitation because it keeps you focused on the wrong target. Money is not the goal, it's the byproduct of growth. When you focus on growth, on becoming stronger, smarter, more skilled, more disciplined, more valuable. Money naturally flows to you. When you focus only on money, you stunt your growth. And without growth, you limit your life. The moment you stop obsessing over money and start building yourself, your whole world expands. You stop thinking small. You stop living in fear. You stop limiting your potential. You start making choices that align with who you want to become, not what you want to earn. Money obsession shrinks your life. Growth expands it. And the more you expand, the more money becomes something that flows to you effortlessly, not because you chased it, but because you outgrew the person who needed to. Discipline is often misunderstood. People hear the word and think of restriction, rigid schedules, or forcing yourself to do things you don't enjoy. But when you look closely at every person who has built real, lasting freedom, you notice something powerful. Discipline wasn't their punishment, it was their power. Freedom does not arrive by accident. It is not something granted to you. It is something you earn, something you build, something you claim through the choices you make every single day. And those choices require discipline, not luck. Luck may give you moments, but discipline gives you momentum. Luck may give you opportunities, but discipline gives you the ability to handle them. Luck may open a door, but without discipline, you won't be prepared to walk through it. Many people wait for the perfect moment to begin their journey toward freedom, when they feel ready, when circumstances improve, when motivation magically appears. But freedom doesn't come to the person who waits. Freedom comes to the person who decides, and discipline is the bridge between the life you have and the life you want. Discipline means doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like doing it. Not because you love discomfort, but because you love your future self more than your temporary feelings. The truth is, feelings come and go. Motivation rises and falls. Inspiration may ignite you, but it cannot carry you. Only discipline can take you from inspiration to transformation. When you rely only on motivation, you become inconsistent. When you rely on discipline, you become unstoppable. A lot of people think they lack motivation, when what they really lack is structure. They drift through each day reacting to circumstances rather than building their life with intention. They say they want freedom, but they continue to entertain habits that trap them. They say they want growth, but they stay loyal to excuses. They say they want success, but they refuse to change their routines. Discipline is the force that breaks these cycles. It replaces "I'll try tomorrow" with "I'll do it now." It replaces avoidance with action. It replaces excuses with results. Freedom requires discipline because freedom requires responsibility. You cannot expect to live a free life while living with chaotic habits. You cannot expect to control your future if you cannot control your present. You cannot expect to achieve your dreams if you are constantly delaying the work required to build them. Discipline gives you control over your time, your energy, and your direction. And the moment you take control of these things, you begin to shape your life rather than merely survive it. Discipline is also a form of self-respect. Every time you honor the promises you make to yourself, you strengthen your identity, you start believing in your capabilities, you start trusting your word. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. This belief becomes powerful because it fuels confidence, real confidence, not the kind that depends on external validation. When you know you can rely on yourself, you stop seeking approval. You stop waiting for permission. You stop depending on others to motivate you. You become self-driven, self-guided, self-led. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is that disciplined people are naturally gifted with willpower. But discipline is not something you're born with. It is something you build through repetition. Every small act of discipline strengthens the muscle. Every moment you choose long-term gain over short-term comfort, you grow. Every time you push through resistance, you become stronger, and over time, the habits that once felt difficult begin to feel natural. You transform from someone who wishes into someone who acts. That transformation is the foundation of freedom. Discipline is also what protects your time. Time is the one resource you never get back. Without discipline, your time gets stolen by distractions, laziness, social pressure, procrastination, and meaningless activities. But when discipline is present, your time becomes intentional. You begin to prioritize what truly matters. You stop giving energy to things that don't align with your goals. You stop letting other people dictate your schedule. Discipline is the gatekeeper of your life. It determines what enters and what stays out. Freedom isn't about doing whatever you want in the moment. That's actually a form of bondage to impulses, to emotions, to temptations, to inconsistency. Real freedom is the ability to design your life with clarity and purpose. And you cannot design your life if you are constantly controlled by your momentary desires. Discipline frees you from those impulses. It gives you mastery over your mind and your actions. It allows you to live intentionally rather than instinctively. Discipline also creates momentum. The first step is always the hardest, but once you build rhythm, consistency becomes easier than inconsistency. You begin to crave progress. You begin to enjoy growth. You begin to realize that every day you maintain discipline, you are moving closer to the life you envision. That feeling becomes addictive in the best way. You no longer chase instant gratification. You chase long-term fulfillment. A disciplined life is not a rigid life. It is a structured life that creates space for what you value. When you discipline yourself financially, you gain the freedom to invest, save, travel, or build. When you discipline your health, you gain the freedom to live energetically and avoid unnecessary suffering. When you discipline your mind, you gain the freedom to stay calm, focused, and grounded. When you discipline your habits, you gain the freedom to rise above your past limitations. Discipline is not restriction, it is expansion. It expands your possibilities, your capabilities, and your capacity to achieve. People who lack discipline often believe that disciplined people have it easier. But the opposite is true. Disciplined people simply learned how to do difficult things early, so the rest of their life could be easier. Undisciplined people choose what is easy now and deal with difficulty later. Disciplined people choose what is hard now and enjoy ease later. This simple distinction separates those who feel trapped from those who live freely. Freedom demands discipline because discipline builds the life that freedom requires. You cannot become free without becoming responsible. You cannot become responsible without becoming disciplined. And you cannot become disciplined without choosing daily actions that honor your future over your impulses. In the end, discipline is the path to freedom. It is the quiet force behind every success story. It is the invisible strength behind every breakthrough. It is the foundation upon which every meaningful life is built. You do not need luck. You do not need perfection. You simply need the courage to begin, the consistency to continue, and the discipline to become the person your future dreams are waiting for. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must look in the mirror and ask a simple but terrifying question: who am I living for? And most people, if they answered honestly, would admit something uncomfortable. They are not living for themselves. They are living for opinions. They are living for validation. They are living for the applause of people who don't even clap for them. They are living inside a cage built from fears that someone else placed in their mind. Freedom does not start when you earn more money. Freedom does not begin when your bank account reaches some magical number. Freedom does not unlock when success arrives at your door. Freedom starts the moment you stop performing for the world and start living for your own purpose, your own truth, your own direction. Because the greatest prison is not a physical one. It is the fear of what others will think. Most people wake up every day and immediately step into roles that aren't even theirs. They step into expectations set by society. Go to school, get a job, don't take risks, don't make noise, don't stand out, don't break the rules, don't dream too big. You must blend in, you must follow the script, you must shrink yourself so others feel comfortable. And because they were told this from childhood, they never question it. They grow older but not freer. They become adults but not independent. They earn money but not self-respect, and slowly, quietly, painfully, they disappear into a life that was never theirs. But there are a few, very few, who reach a point where they say enough. They find themselves exhausted from pretending. They get tired of hiding their real personality, their real desires, their real calling, and in that exhaustion, something powerful rises inside them, the desire to be real, to be authentic, to be unfiltered. That is the first spark of freedom. Approval is a drug, and most people are addicted to it without even realizing it. A drug that gives a tiny hit of pleasure but destroys your spirit. Every post on social media becomes a performance. Every conversation becomes a negotiation. Every decision becomes a calculation. Will people approve? Will they judge me? Will they laugh? Will they criticize me? And in that constant loop of fear, your potential suffocates. Your gifts shrink. Your courage disappears. But think about this. Has anyone ever achieved greatness by seeking permission? Has any dream in history ever been born from fear? Has any legacy ever been built by someone who played small to keep others comfortable? Never, not once. Those who achieved the impossible were the ones who stopped caring about the noise around them and started listening to the voice within them. Freedom begins when you stop asking people to validate the life you were born to live. You were not born to be liked. You were born to be impactful. You were born to grow, to evolve, to dream, to expand. Approval will never give you peace because approval is unstable. Today they praise you, tomorrow they mock you. Today they support you, tomorrow they doubt you. But when you live for your own purpose, even if the whole world disagrees, you still win because you sleep with a peaceful heart. You rise with clarity. You walk with confidence that is not borrowed from anyone else. The moment you decide you no longer need applause to move forward, you become unstoppable. People's opinions lose their control over you. Their judgment becomes background noise. Their expectations become irrelevant to your direction. You start making decisions based on alignment, not approval. You start investing in yourself without asking for permission. You start showing up with the version of you that was always meant to shine. And something beautiful happens. The world begins to respect you more when you stop needing its approval. Because real confidence is magnetic. Real authenticity is rare. Real courage is unforgettable. When you stop chasing people, opportunities start chasing you. When you stop performing, people start paying attention. When you stop diluting your potential to fit into someone else's box, you finally break the box and build your life with your own hands. But understand this. Becoming free from approval does not mean becoming arrogant. It means becoming grounded. It means knowing your worth so deeply that outside opinions cannot shake you. It means choosing authenticity over acceptance. It means choosing growth over comfort. It means choosing purpose over applause. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. People may not understand you at first. Some might distance themselves. Some might judge you. But remember, the people who want you to remain the same are the ones who benefit from your limitations. The people who fear your growth are the ones who rely on your silence. The people who resist your freedom are the ones who are threatened by your evolution. Let them talk, let them misunderstand, let them doubt. Let them whisper, because while they waste breath discussing your life, you are out there building a future that they cannot even imagine. Freedom is not about escaping responsibility. It is about escaping conformity. It is not about rejecting others. It is about reclaiming yourself. It is not about fighting the world. It is about finally aligning with your own soul. And when you reach that place, when you wake up every morning with the confidence that your life is yours, you will feel a peace that no amount of approval could ever give you. You will feel a power rising from within that no one can take away. You will walk with a strength that comes from knowing your path is chosen, not inherited, intentional, not accidental, authentic, not performed. That is freedom. That is the moment your life transforms. That is when you truly begin to live. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is a punishment. They think it is a cage, a burden, a limitation. They think discipline means saying no to life, cutting off joy, living like a machine. But this misunderstanding has cost millions of people their potential, their dreams, and their freedom, because in reality, discipline is not a cage, it is the master key. It is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the quiet force that transforms ordinary people into exceptional ones, the invisible power that separates dreamers from achievers, and the single greatest tool that liberates you from chaos, fear, and stagnation. Discipline is not restriction. Discipline is freedom. Think about it. When you lack discipline, what controls your life? Your impulses, your moods, your distractions, your laziness, your excuses, your fears. You become a prisoner of your emotions. Your day is dictated by whatever temptation is closest to you. You live reactively, responding to everything, mastering nothing. You are pulled in 1,000 directions at once, never truly moving forward. That is not freedom, that is chaos, and chaos always leads to regret. But when you embrace discipline, everything changes. Suddenly you become the one in control. You decide how your day looks. You decide how your mind operates. You decide what grows and what dies in your life. Discipline builds structure, and structure builds clarity. Clarity builds momentum, and momentum creates breakthroughs. Discipline is the foundation of every version of freedom you desire: financial freedom, emotional freedom, physical freedom, spiritual freedom. If you want financial freedom, you need discipline in saving, spending, investing, and learning. If you want physical freedom, you need discipline in movement, nutrition, and habits. If you want emotional freedom, you need discipline in your thoughts, reactions, and boundaries. If you want spiritual freedom, you need discipline in your values, intentions, and focus. Without discipline, freedom is impossible. It becomes a fantasy that never enters reality. Look at anyone you admire: athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, creators. They all have one thing in common: an unshakable relationship with discipline. Not because they were born with it, but because they chose it. Again and again and again, even when it was inconvenient, uncomfortable, or boring. That is the truth most people don't want to hear. Freedom is not found in motivation. Freedom is found in discipline. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation fades. Discipline remains. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is a fire that burns every single day. When you build discipline, you are building a version of yourself that can no longer be controlled by weakness. You are building a person who does what needs to be done even when they don't feel like it. You are building a mind that no longer negotiates with excuses. You are building habits that move you toward your highest potential. And here's the beautiful part: discipline doesn't get harder over time, it becomes easier. Because discipline creates results, and results create pride. Pride creates momentum, and momentum makes discipline natural. What once felt like effort becomes identity. This is the shift where you no longer try to be disciplined, you simply are disciplined. But to reach that place, you must endure the early battles. You must break the old patterns that kept you stuck for years. You must face the parts of yourself that prefer comfort over growth. You must silence the voice inside you that says tomorrow. Because tomorrow is the biggest lie your mind tells you when you fear change. The greatest enemy of discipline is not failure, it is waiting. Waiting for the right time, waiting for motivation, waiting for clarity, waiting for energy, waiting for confidence, waiting for circumstances to align. Freedom begins the moment you decide to stop waiting and start building. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about consistency. It is about showing up with intention, even in small ways. It is about doing the thing that strengthens you rather than the thing that weakens you. It is about choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. It is about doing what your future self will thank you for, not what your present self finds easy. Every disciplined action is an investment into a future version of you, stronger, richer, wiser, freer. Discipline is also self-respect in action. When you keep your promises to yourself, you build trust in yourself. And when you trust yourself, your confidence becomes unbreakable. You stop seeking validation because you know you have integrity. You stop searching for inspiration because you know you have direction. You stop fearing challenges because you know you can overcome them. Self-respect is the root of self-mastery, and discipline is the root of self-respect. People who avoid discipline spend their whole lives paying a much higher price, the price of regret, of unfinished potential, of what if, and if only. They pay with stress, with instability, with low confidence, with lost time, with missed opportunities. They pay endlessly because undisciplined choices compound negatively, but disciplined choices compound too positively, powerfully, beautifully. Every workout builds strength. Every hour of learning builds wisdom. Every early morning builds momentum. Every sacrifice builds opportunity. Every disciplined day builds a life you can be proud of. This is why discipline is the pathway to freedom, because discipline gives you control over the only thing that truly matters. Your choices, and when you control your choices, you control your life. The world will always try to distract you. Temptation will always try to seduce you. Your mind will always whisper shortcuts, but the disciplined person rises above all of it because they have something stronger, purpose. And purpose-powered discipline is unbeatable. When you commit to discipline, you commit to a higher version of yourself. You commit to a future that is bigger than your excuses, stronger than your fears, and more meaningful than your distractions. And that is the moment you step into real freedom. Freedom to build, to grow, to rise, to transform. Freedom to design your life instead of drifting through it. Freedom to become the person you were truly meant to be. Most people chase money with fear in their hearts and desperation in their minds. They run after wealth like it is running away from them. They think the harder they chase, the faster they will catch it. But the truth is simple and undeniable. Money does not chase desperation. Money follows value, always has, always will. Desperation repels what you want. Value attracts what you deserve. Look at the world around you. The people earning the most are not the ones begging for attention, begging for clients, or begging for opportunities. They are the ones who serve at a high level, the ones who solve important problems, the ones who operate with competence, patience, conviction, and consistency. They don't scream, "Please choose me." Their work whispers, "You need me." Desperation is loud, value is magnetic. When you operate from desperation, your energy shifts. You become needy. You start looking at every opportunity as survival. Every interaction becomes transactional. Every action becomes panicked. You stop thinking long-term because your emotions are drowning you. You stop focusing on quality because your fear demands speed. You stop seeing abundance because your mind is obsessing over scarcity, and the world can sense it. People feel desperation even if you don't say a word. Clients can sense it. Businesses can sense it. Investors can sense it. Opportunities can sense it. Because desperation is not a financial condition, it is a spiritual condition. It is the vibration of fear. It is the voice of lack. It is the expression of insecurity. It is the belief that you are not enough unless someone else chooses you. But hear this, value is the opposite. Value is confidence. Value is strength. Value is assurance, not anxiety. Value is the quiet power that comes from mastering something, building something, creating something meaningful. When you operate from value, you're not begging for opportunities, you're preparing for them. You're building skills when no one is watching. You're improving your craft when nobody claps. You're investing in your mind when everyone else is distracted. You're expanding your capacity so deeply that when opportunity knocks, you answer with excellence, not insecurity. Money chases people who become valuable, not people who chase money. Think of it like gravity. When you become valuable, you increase your pull. You create a force around you that attracts success, people, ideas, collaboration, wealth, respect, and opportunities. You don't have to force anything, you simply become someone who cannot be ignored. Value is a magnet, money is metal. Become the magnet and the metal comes to you. Now here's the mistake most people make. They think value means perfection. They think value means being the best in the world. They think value means being flawless before ever taking action. But value is not about being perfect. Value is about being useful. Value is about being consistent. Value is about being reliable. Value is about being solution-oriented. Value is about being authentic and committed. People pay for solutions, not desperation. People pay for reliability, not excuses. People pay for impact, not insecurity. Money moves toward usefulness. Money moves toward service. Money moves toward those who improve the lives of others. If you want more money, stop focusing on money and start focusing on impact. Stop asking, how can I get paid more? Start asking, how can I serve better? How can I grow deeper? How can I solve bigger problems? How can I master my craft so profoundly that my work becomes undeniable? Because here is the ultimate truth. When you grow, your income grows, not the other way around. People think they need more money to become better, but you need to become better to get more money. Value creation begins inside you. It begins with your discipline, your skills, your mindset, your emotional strength, your ability to control your impulses and lead yourself with clarity. It begins with the work you do when no one is watching. You don't earn a millionaire mindset by being lucky. You earn it by becoming someone who can handle responsibility, pressure, and purpose. You cannot cheat the process of value. You cannot fake competence in the long run. You cannot shortcut excellence, but you can build it, piece by piece, hour by hour, day by day. And as your value rises, something remarkable happens. The desperation fades. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop begging and start attracting. You stop fearing and start leading. You stop hoping and start creating. You begin to realize that money is not a reward for desperation. It is a reward for contribution, a reward for growth, a reward for commitment, a reward for having the courage to do what others are too afraid or too lazy to do. When you become valuable, you cannot be replaced easily. When you become valuable, you cannot be ignored effortlessly. When you become valuable, opportunities start searching for you because you have become the solution someone else desperately needs. That is the power of value. It creates demand, and where there is demand, wealth follows. So, if you feel stuck financially, do not ask, why am I not making money? Ask instead, how can I increase my value? Because your income is a reflection of the problems you solve and the quality with which you solve them. Increase your value, and your income has no choice but to rise. People who focus on value become irreplaceable. People who focus on value become leaders. People who focus on value step into abundance because they are not controlled by the fear of losing, they are driven by the passion to grow. And growth, not desperation, is the birthplace of wealth. Money follows calm confidence. Money follows purpose. Money follows clarity. Money follows mastery. Money follows those who create more value than they consume. So stop chasing money with panic. Start becoming the person money naturally gravitates toward. Stand tall, grow deeper, master your craft, serve with excellence, build with intention, lead with integrity. When you become valuable, you no longer run after money because money begins running after you. Most people live their lives waiting for escape, waiting for the weekend, waiting for the holiday, waiting for the 1 week in December or the 3 days in summer where they can finally breathe, finally relax, finally feel alive. They spend 50 weeks tolerating life they don't love just to enjoy 2 weeks trying to forget it. That is not living. That is surviving. And you were not designed to survive. You were designed to live, to wake up excited, to move with purpose, to feel aligned with your own existence, to build a life that feeds you instead of drains you, to create something that doesn't require escape, because the life itself is fulfilling, meaningful, and driven by your values. This truth is simple and life-changing. You were not born to endure your life. You were born to design it. You were born to shape it with intention. You were born to construct it brick by brick, decision by decision, habit by habit, until it becomes a life you don't want to run away from. But most people never do this, not because they don't want it. Everyone wants a life they love. It's because they were taught to accept what they were given instead of creating what they desire. They were taught to follow a path, not build one. They were taught to obey routines, not question them. They were taught to choose safety, not meaning. And slowly, without even realizing it, they build a life that looks stable on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. A life full of duties but lacking direction. A life with money but no passion. A life with routine but no connection. A life with responsibilities but no joy. So they rely on vacations, because vacations become the only time they feel free, the only time they can breathe, the only time they can silence the noise, the only time they feel alive enough to remember what peace actually feels like. But a vacation should be a celebration, not a temporary escape from a life that suffocates you. A vacation should amplify joy, not replace it. A vacation should be an enhancement, not a necessity for emotional survival. A vacation should be a moment of expansion, not a break from exhaustion. You deserve a life that feels good every day, not just twice a year. That doesn't mean your life will be perfect. It doesn't mean you will never face challenges. It means you design your life with such intention, purpose, and alignment that even on your toughest days, you don't want to escape from it. Because there is a difference between discomfort and misery. Discomfort grows you. Misery traps you. Too many people live in misery disguised as responsibility. They convince themselves they have no choice. They trade their dreams for a paycheck. They trade their passions for safety. They trade their creative energy for tasks that drain their soul. But hear this clearly. Your life is your responsibility, but your joy is too. Your fulfillment is too. Your direction is too. Your purpose is too. You cannot outsource the creation of your life. You cannot wait for someone to fix it. You cannot hope that a single vacation will heal years of imbalance. You must design your life with the same intention you wish others would use to treat you. With care, with clarity, with respect. Building life you don't need a vacation from begins with honesty. Honesty about what drains you. Honesty about what energizes you. Honesty about who belongs in your life and who doesn't. Honesty about what work aligns with your gifts. Honesty about the future you actually want, not the one society expects. from you, then it requires courage. The courage to make changes that feel uncomfortable, to step into uncertainty, to break habits that no longer fit who you are becoming. It requires discipline, the discipline to structure your life around what matters instead of what distracts you. It required intention, the intention to choose alignment over approval, growth over comfort, meaning over routine. And most importantly, it requires self-respect, because a life built without self-respect is always a life you want to escape. Self-respect means walking away from environments that destroy your confidence. Self-respect means refusing to shrink so others can feel comfortable. Self-respect means building work, relationships, habits, and routines that reflect your worth, not your fear. A life you don't need a vacation from is not a life without work. It is a life where your work doesn't break your spirit. It is a life where your effort doesn't feel like punishment. It is a life where you feel deeply connected to what you are building. It is not about luxury. It is about alignment. It is not about constant pleasure. It is about meaningful purpose. It is not about escaping. It is about expanding. Imagine waking up and not counting the hours until the day ends. Imagine finishing a week and not feeling emotionally destroyed. Imagine building a life where rest is enjoyable, not mandatory. Imagine achieving success without sacrificing your soul. Imagine being proud of the life you created, not exhausted by it. That is what happens when you design with intention, when your choices come from clarity instead of fear, when your actions come from purpose instead of pressure. This kind of life requires you to grow into a new identity, the identity of someone who takes ownership. Someone who builds instead of avoids, someone who creates instead of complains, someone who invests in their well-being instead of ignoring it, someone who understands that freedom is not the absence of work, it's the presence of meaning. A life worth living is not one you run away from, it is one you run towards every single morning. So yes, take vacations, travel, explore, enjoy the world, celebrate your wins, rest your mind, but don't use a vacation as a bandage for a broken life. Use it as fuel for an already meaningful one. You have one life, one chance, one window of opportunity. Build something you love, not something that looks good on the outside, something that feels good on the inside. Build a life that energizes you. Build a life that inspires you. Build a life that you are proud to wake up to. Build a life that is aligned with your purpose, your power, and your truth. Build a life that feels like freedom, not escape. Build a life you don't need a vacation from. People chase money like it is the ultimate destination. They wake up each day, grind for hours, sacrifice time with family, compromise health, ignore their passions, all because they believe that money is the ticket to happiness. But here's the truth that most people never realize. Money is not the goal. Money is simply a tool, a means, a mechanism that allows you to achieve something far greater: choice, freedom, and impact. The first thing money gives you, when handled correctly, is choice. Choice is freedom in its purest form. With money, you decide where to live, what to do, who to spend your time with, and how to spend your energy. You no longer beg for permission to follow your dreams because resources are available to fuel them. You are no longer tied to environments, people, or obligations that drain you because you can choose better. True wealth lies in the ability to make decisions without fear, to act without limitation, and to control the trajectory of your own life. Money can buy this, but only if you understand that money alone is meaningless without the wisdom. Use it intentionally, but choice is only the beginning. The second gift money can give you is freedom. Freedom is the quiet, profound form of wealth that surpasses superficial luxury. Freedom means you wake up excited rather than trapped. Freedom means you can walk away from toxic situations without hesitation. Freedom means you spend your time intentionally on things that nourish your mind, body, and soul instead of being trapped in obligations that steal your energy. It is the ability to live life on your terms, to pursue mastery, creativity, relationships, and experiences without asking permission. Freedom is the reason people chase money, not the money itself, and those who focus solely on the number often find themselves richer in accounts but poorer in life, enslaved to the very thing they were trying to use to escape limitation. The third gift, and perhaps the most profound, is impact. Money provides the capacity to influence the world in a meaningful way. It allows you to invest in ideas, build systems, create opportunities, support others, and leave a legacy that lasts beyond your lifetime. True fulfillment comes not from accumulating wealth for yourself, but from using it to create a ripple effect of transformation. The richest people in the world in terms of money are often empty, but the ones who understand that their work can positively affect millions are truly wealthy in a way that transcends currency. Money without impact is hollow. Money with impact is a force multiplier of your vision and purpose. Many people misunderstand this. They think wealth is the final product rather than the vehicle for greater outcomes. They chase digits in an account, promotions at work, or recognition from others, believing that these things will fill the void. But the void is not filled with money. It is filled with autonomy, freedom, and meaningful contribution. Until you recognize that, your efforts will feel exhausting, your victories will feel empty, and your life will feel incomplete no matter how many zeros appear in your bank account. Here's another crucial truth. Chasing money without a foundation of discipline, skill, and value is dangerous. It creates stress, dependence, and desperation. It makes people slaves to their own expectations and the expectations of others. It narrows vision. It erodes joy. But when you focus on growth, contribution, and mastery first, money becomes a natural byproduct. It flows to those who build, create, serve, and lead. It gravitates to those who become valuable, not to those who are simply desperate. Choice, freedom, and impact require inner strength. They require self-mastery, emotional intelligence, and the courage to make decisions that may not be popular but align with your vision. They require stepping away from fear, approval, seeking, and the trap of short-term thinking. You cannot outsource this. No one can grant it to you. You have to cultivate it. You have to fight for it. You have to claim it. And the more you claim it within yourself, the more money becomes a tool rather than a master. Understanding this shift in perspective transforms everything. Suddenly, setbacks no longer feel devastating because your goal is no longer the number. It is the freedom to act. Suddenly, failures become lessons instead of losses because your measure of success is not tied to the money you make, but to the progress you create and the value you provide. Suddenly, your work becomes meaningful, joyful, and sustainable because it is guided by purpose rather than desperation. Think of it this way: money is a tool, choice is power, freedom is life, impact is legacy. When you focus on the first three, the fourth naturally emerges. Every decision you make, every skill you develop, every effort you invest in serving others builds impact. And impact, unlike money, cannot be stolen, lost, or devalued. It compounds, it multiplies, it creates meaning. This is why the truly wealthy think differently. They do not ask, how much can I earn? They ask, how can I create options for myself and others? They do not ask, how can I look rich? They ask, how can I build systems, skills, and influence that allow me to live freely and help others do the same? They do not ask, how can I be safe? They ask, how can I be resilient, adaptable, and empowered to make choices no matter the circumstances? When you internalize this mindset, money stops being a chain and starts being a lever. You no longer trade time for money endlessly. You no longer live for approval. You no longer sacrifice your well-being or your principles. You start designing your life with intention. You start living with purpose. You start creating something bigger than yourself, and here is the most important lesson. You do not need to wait for wealth to start living this way. You can begin today. You can start making choices that prioritize freedom, clarity, and impact over short-term gains. You can start contributing value that matters. You can start building skills that compound over a lifetime. You can start designing a life where money is an enabler, not the end goal. Because at the end of the day, the real goal is never money. It is living with choice. It is living with freedom. It is living with the ability to leave a lasting impact. Money is the tool that allows these things to flourish. But if money becomes the obsession, everything else falls apart. Obsess over the number and you lose sight of the life you were meant to live. Obsess over the tools and you miss the purpose. Obsess over freedom, choice, and impact, and the money will naturally follow, without fear, desperation, or compromise. So make the shift today. Stop chasing money. Start building a life where money is secondary to freedom, choice, and impact. Stop measuring success in dollars and start measuring it in autonomy, fulfillment, and the ability to make a difference. Focus on becoming the person who can handle wealth, the person who can create opportunities, the person who can make choices confidently, and the person whose life inspires others. Because the ultimate truth is this: money is temporary, but freedom, choice, and impact last forever.